Good morning. I'm Corey. Welcome to Creating with Scraps. I am calling this journal flip through the No Sewn Signature Gratitude Mini Journal. And the reason is, though there's sewing in it, I can't call it a no sew, but sewing is an option. You don't have to sew in it. And the signatures themselves are not sewn in, they're envelopes. And I'll get to that in just a moment. But one of the questions I got on a previous video, I was doing an update of my craft room. And I had some things that I was working on my desk, some scraps that were left over. And somebody asked that I share what I made with those scraps, what they had turned into. So I'll really quickly go over those. And there's some transparency on some of the pieces. So every once in a while, there could be a glare with the lights. My apologies for that. Baking paper, little pocket, baking paper, tracing paper, coffee dyed tracing paper, little pocket with transparency envelope top, not envelope, window top, again with the scraps that were on my desk. And oh, I had somebody else ask. Yes, when I cut something up, I try to use as much of it as possible before I move on to the next bit of scraps. And this is all that's left of that. I think that's all. Here's another piece of that little doily. It wasn't doily. That little handkerchief that I used and cut up for this mini book. So that's all that's left, and I will use those up quickly. So there you go. And then I had some little tickets in that stash pile, so I made some little concertina folds. I did a couple of those, I think. And a cluster, because, you know, scraps and clusters go hand in hand. And then like a belly band or a tuck. And then another one of those. I had transparency left over in that scrap stack. So I used it, again, the same idea on this one, with just a baking paper, coffee dyed tracing paper pocket. Little mini notepad. I had some corrugated paper left over in that stash. And I don't know if I'm going to turn this into a journaling card or a belly band or a tuck or what. So I left the back empty. But if I decide to make it at a journaling spot, I can just put a piece of coffee dyed paper on the back. And then a mini little booklet, a little notebook, and a journaling card, or again, a tuck or a cluster or a pocket for the top of something else. And this one is a journaling, open little journaling card with some notepad on there. And there's more of that little lace leftover bits in a little notepad, tuck in a pocket. And an accordion plate journaling spot. Just some scrap on the side. I think I folded it over. Yeah, just some folded over scrap sewn down. And then a couple little embellishments on the bottom. And again, oh, this one's just a whole notepad with a journaling card on the top. And this is a little booklet. Oh, this is an offshoot of the ones I made for Get Your Creep On June. I had taken the Matchbox and reconfigured it to make it into a flat book. But you don't have to use a Matchbox in order to do that. I had a long strip of this paper, this card. It's actually scrapbook paper, not actually what it looks like as ledger paper. And then I covered it with the leftover bits of wallpaper that I had. And so this is a pull-out notebook, little notebook, and fold it over to be closed. And this is just a journaling card. I don't know if I'd put note paper on the back, or actually the grain is light enough to be able to write on, so there's that. And then this is one of those pockets. This is a corner. We make these, and I'm sure you've all seen them. We make these in school, in class with the kids, because it's a super, super simple, quick project with just a strip of paper. And then it tucks over the corner, and you can embellish it or not. But this, I had this bit left, so this is a pocket here with a journaling tag at the top. And it fits snug, but there you go. And then a little belly band notepad on top. Again, this is just one of Tracy's butterflies with Seth Apter Vintage Beeswax embossed on top. It's a embossing powder. And then a bit of that lace behind. And then I used burnt gold rub and buff around the edges. It makes that butterfly pop out a little bit. And then this is just a belly band to put the notepad in. And there you go. Okay, those are the bits that I made that were on my desk the last time, and the colors are all the same because that's exactly what I had on my desk. All right, so the journal, the little mini journal. To create this particular one, I used Tracy Fox Love Junk Journals, Tracy Fox Creative Archive Set 2. And there's two different sets of this archive paper that she has. Archive Set 2, I believe they're the same, but one is just a bit grungier. So I had printed out some of it on card and some of it on just copy paper. And this is what I intended to use for the original background. And will probably be what I use for the second journal, just because it's so neutral and goes with just about every one of her kits. And 8-10 pages, I believe, in this kit. It's super great. Love, love, love this. One of my favorite all-time backgrounds. It's kind of like ledger and writing paper and note paper. Archive Set 1, I believe, is the similar or the same, but just a little bit lighter, less grunge. So if you're not a grunge person. So that's Archive Set 2. And then I used the mini floral tags and pocket set, which is one of her newer sets. And I had cut all those bits and pieces out. So I got the entire, or cut out the entire set, and I just inked everything, cut and inked everything, and then embossed it or glazed it with the Nouveau Deluxe Crystal Glaze and let it set so that when I was ready to make, I could just pull the pieces. They were essentially ready to go. And then it's also got her rather random mix labels. I don't know how well you can see that. That's a little tiny itty bitty tag. And I shrunk this smaller. I want to say on my printer, you know, you can fit full size, or you can change the photo size to an 8x10 or 5x7. I wanted these a bit smaller because of the scale. So I printed those at a 5x7. And this is the size that they turn out. And then I just cut that entire kit. So those are the bits that I used. I printed some of the pockets on vellum, and it's just vellum from Amazon. It's a middleweight. It's not the heavyweight vellum, which is really crisp and tends to tear if you fold it. And it's not the lightweight vellum that is super duper duper thin. It's just a medium weight vellum. And let's see, what else do you need to know? Okay, I had an old doily, a small doily that was really sturdy. Some of them aren't as sturdy, but I wanted to use that as the closure, so I did. And then I had this pretty vintage lace that I liked with the doily. I thought it looked pretty together, but it was too thin by itself. And what I mean by too thin is, oh, hairless. I think it's in this bin. The width was too narrow. Yeah, it's in this bin. The width was too narrow. Is it this one? No, it's not that one. Well, it's one of these. And it works the same way. The concept works the same way either way. Oh, here, is this it? Yeah, this looks like it's it. So this is lace. I know I have lots of lace in lots of places, but this is all lace that I found this summer on my trip. And I told myself I really want to use this up. There's some Entredaux. I hope I'm saying that right, Lisa. Entredaux lace in here and some other bits of lace, but there's all kinds of little bits and so, so pretty. And I got some incredible deals. Yeah, this is the one. So what I did is I took two widths of this essentially, and then I just laid one on top of the other like this, and then sewed the two flat edges together like that. And that's how I made a spine that was wide enough. And then I glued these curled bits, or these scalloped bits, down into the spine to make the back closure. But that's how that was done. So I'll put those in my scrap bin, and I'll move this over. And that'll be loud, so I'll move the lid. Okay, that's how I made the spine on this. And then the top is just the top piece and the back piece, and then the writing piece inside are just packing board, the stuff you get on the back of a notepad, or that comes sometimes in photo paper boxes. You know, they have this to make it a little bit sturdier. I just put 2 layers of that together. And I will show you the journal, and then it'll have to be a part B to show you how I made the pieces for it inside. But the basic construction I'll show you on this video, because it's pretty simple and pretty straightforward. Okay. Front, back, the grand measurements on this are 4 3/4 height and 3 inches wide. So it's kind of little, but as you can see, it's chubby. This is about a 2-inch wide spine. And I've got the 30 days or 30 pieces for 30 days of gratitude are what I'm doing in November. And yeah, so there it is. The front is one of the pockets that are printed in the flower kit, the mini floral kit. And I just printed it on vellum. And then again, I used this product on the top to make those flower bits stand out. The name wears off, but it's Nuvo, N-U-V-O, and the product is Crystal Glaze. If you've been to my channel before, you've seen me refer to that frequently. Then I sewed a button on the top. And the way I do it is I just squish down and pull back. No, it won't work because I'm on camera, but it usually just pops right off so that I don't have to tear the little bit of doily on there. And what I did to make it stand out enough to catch the button without it being too close to the background, so I'm not sure how well you can see it, but there you go. I put a small metal washer underneath the button, and that just gives me that little gap. Oh, there it is, that little gap for the doily to close without having to put too much stress on either the button or the paper. On the inside, I covered the cover page, or there's a name for it, the book plate page. No, that's not right. Whatever the first page is. Before I put that on, I used a bit of this. Now there's, it's just that super sturdy paper that I'm drawing an absolute blank on now, a mailer. It just doesn't tear. And I had gotten a package with this in it. So I save this and I cut up little bits and pieces, and that keeps it reinforced so that the strings don't pull through the holes. The strings that tie the button in place, they don't pull through the holes, and they don't pull through the chipboard, and they don't pull through the paper, because this is super sturdy little stuff, and it's thin and flat. And there's a name for this, and I'm just drawing a blank on it. So you can purchase these, but you know, to reinforce your spines and your seams and such so they don't tear. But again, when I get them in the mail, I just tend to hang on to them because a little goes a long way. So that is on the bottom side to prevent the string from coming through. And just used a smaller washer to put between the button and the background. And that gives me that grace there. I have a set of stamps, and I purchased them on Amazon. I have a couple of these sets, and there's 2 different sizes. This is the smaller size with a total dimension of 2.5 square. And they're alphabet stamps that clip together, so you can make whatever word or words you want, and there's numbers as well. And I used this size of the set on this tag and then on the few words throughout the book. And I don't remember what it's called, but if you look up snap together stamps or alphabet stamps on Amazon, that'll pop up. Okay, for the envelope on top, not an envelope, the pocket on top, it's just printed on vellum. And for my reinforcer, hole reinforcer, I used an extra scrap of the vellum to punch a hole there. And then I used those alphabet stamps that I showed you, and I wrote in a moment of gratitude. And it's not just a single moment, but the focus is on this moment in time in gratitude. And then just put that back on top. All right, the inside, just a pocket. And this, thank you, Gail Augustinelli. I had recently purchased a new sewing machine because the thumb switch or finger switch on my other machine was no longer working. And Gail saw it and said, hey, I have the same sewing machine, try. And I usually only do a zigzag or a straight stitch. I'm not adventurous in that regard. But she said, try stitch 61. It's a really pretty leaf pattern. So I tried it on this scrap of green, and I'm like, oh my gosh, Gail is 100% right. That is really pretty. And so I decided to make that the inside pocket as a thank you to beautiful, sweet, wonderful Gail Augustinelli. All right, and here are the journaling prompts. And they're general guideline prompts. I thought they could either be cut across and tucked onto each page, or just referred to as you're journaling each day. I originally was going to keep this one for myself, and then I had another idea, and so I think I'm going to put this one either in my Etsy shop or offer it up to someone. I'm not 100% sure yet, but there's the inspiration pieces, the prompts, I should say, for each day of the journal. and that just goes into the front pocket. And there's lots and lots of them online, so you can choose ones that suit you. I just chose ones that were specific yet general enough. And then whoever gets this journal, I'll put a little note inside this first pocket, which is why it's empty. My original plan with this journal was to make it super simple. Anybody could make it in a couple hours in an afternoon, so that nobody that wanted to participate in the gratitude journal would be excluded due to time constraints. And I started to do just that. And that was the reason originally for my no-sew spine. But then I was me, and I was going to put just the pages and then a tag, or one of these beautiful tags from Tracy's kit on each page. But that didn't, I mean, it was pretty, but it wasn't me. It's bottom line, it wasn't me. And so I thought, okay, I'm not going to do what I traditionally do and change each page, do something different on each page. How about I repeat it? And because there's 30 pages, thank you, November, I was able to do 6 and 5. So I've got every 6 pages will be the same item. So there's 6 different items in here, basically 6 different embellishments, I should say, and they're done 5 times each. And I liked the way that balanced, and I liked the idea that they're the same, but they're not identical because each of the flowers or images are different. And it's still fairly simple. So when I'm making the bits for them, well, this is for a card, but when I'm making the bits for them, I can do 5 at a time and then just decorate the whole journal. That was my mindset, and that's where I ended up. And I'll flip through the whole thing, but I'll show you how the 6 different embellishments work, act, look, what have you. All right, the first page is just, this is one of these bits, cut right, folded like this to make it a flapped hinge, and lift it up, and then there's journaling space right here. So drop down journaling space, so you've got space on the top if you chose to write. And when I journal, my personal style is I don't write a lot, or I'm not real long-winded with that. So a smaller amount of writing space works well for me. But if I wanted to get more long-winded, I certainly could, because I create more journaling space. All right, so that's the first of the 6 embellishments. The second is one of these side pockets that I've made in the past. I just changed it a bit to make it more in line with what I was doing in this journal. So another one of these bits, and any size or style works, glued onto the side with a vellum pocket here and a little tag and a drop down. So maybe I thought I could put the prompt of the day on this and then do the journaling space in the back. And this one is just an accordion plate writing space, so plenty of space to write. And I used I should have gone over supplies. I apologize. Supplies for this: Tracy's Digitals, craft card, glassine envelopes. And I'm going to come to the envelopes in just a minute. Let me finish flipping through this, and then I'll come to the envelopes. And I chose glassine envelopes, and then scraps of sari silk and scraps of lace. But I used a thin linen writing paper for this. It's not as thin as copy paper, but it's thinner definitely than cardstock or heavier weight paper. And I just like the texture. I don't know how well you can see that, but I like the texture that it adds, yet it's still very, very thin, because the journal gets fat quickly, especially when I'm doing it. And then I just stamped on the front to add a little bit of interest, because there's a lot of that neutral color. Okay, and it's not wanting to go in. It does go in easily, I promise. It's just because, again, angle camera. All right. So 1 and 2, and number 3 is, again, a lift up, but a little bit different than the lift up here. A lift up, and I use these as square, and there are pockets on top. That's what I forgot to do. I've got itty bitty tags to put in the pockets on top, and I just haven't inked those, so I'll put those in. So there's just a simple tag to go in the top of that. And then this is just a simple drop down journaling. So same idea, but it takes up the whole page. And this is glued onto the back. And it's again using that linen paper. So there's item number 3. Item number 4 is a belly band with another one of these tags as a double belly band, right? Just another tag on top is a double belly band. And then there's a little fold over journaling spot on the tucked behind the belly, the tall belly band, with a bit of lace sewn onto the edge. And then the top belly band, the item from the kit, is just to hold a word. And I tried to find 5 words that meant grateful without using blessed, even though I have nothing against blessed and I quite like it. I just wanted to make sure that anybody who wanted to be able to use this journal would. So that's item number 4. And then number 5 is the kit comes with circles. It's little circle punches. And I use that on the top corner to act as like an anchor for a little notepad. So I just tucked the little notepad on the bottom. And I put the Tim Holtz paper clips on the bottom largely to balance out the weight, because I had this heavier bit at the top and I wanted the same at the bottom so that it didn't squish to one side versus the other. And so I used a bottom loading notepad, so it's a little bit thicker here, with offcuts of the digital, the archive digital, to tuck it into the bottom so it can be removed or not. Lots of pages, I think there's 5 or 6 pages, so plenty of space to write. And then it tucks under the top like that. And again, it just balances the weight so it's equally fluffy top and bottom. So that was number 5. And then number 6 is a clipped in folded over piece, right? Just a same thing, little accordion style piece, again, taking out. And then I clustered some sari silk, just sewed a bunch of sari silk up, clipped it up, snipped it off, excuse me, and then sewed it onto the edge of the page. And that's what I mean by the sewing. So I couldn't say it was a no-sew journal, but I just sewed it down to the very edge of the page. And then more of those tags with a Tracy label on top and a bit of that scrap lace and a button, and I put it on bulb pins. And I love using bulb pins, but one of the things that challenges me is when the bulb pins are in the book, they fall down, and sometimes that causes the piece that's on the bulb pin to tear. So what I did with this one is, after I put all the pieces together and put it in, I used a needle and thread and just sewed down the top of the bulb pin. So when you look at the top there, all the bulb pins, you can see the tops, and that's one of the reasons I made the cover a bit longer, and they fall to the back. I don't usually have a lot of threads, but you can see that I left the strings of the thread a bit longer so that you can see them at the top. And again, that's just so that each of these pieces that use that formula stay in place without falling down to the sides or impeding the flow of this page spinning or the page flipping. Sorry, it's early. My words are having a hard time coming in today. But I liked the way it looked at the top, and I also really like the fact that it holds them down to keep them from falling. Okay, so that's 6. So now I'll do, let's see, maybe I can zoom in a bit more. I'll do a quick flip through of the whole thing so you can see they're the same without being identical. Oh, and then there's one more bit I'll show you. So I also wanted the option of being able to tuck, let's see, where did I put it? Okay, tuck something in the side. So let's say somewhere during the month you got some memorabilia, or you had a deeper thought, or you had, just you wanted to save something for whatever it was. Maybe you went to Chinese and you wanted to save the fortune that you get, or you got a candy treat or what have you, and you wanted to save the wrapper, or somebody wrote you a little love note or something. Well, in here, because these are envelopes, glassine envelopes, I snip the side of every third one, so you've got an additional space to tuck, to save a treasure or two. And that's what that is for. And that's, again, the same concept on 5 times throughout the journal. I'll put it that way. And here is the journal in its entirety. And I just mixed it up so it's the same concept 5 different times each, using different images from the digital kit, the mini floral kit. And even when you flip through and you're sewn, this bulb pin stays at the top because of the way it was just tied down once, or sewn on once. And I was pleased with the way that worked. These pages are a glassine envelope, and I'll show you that in just a minute, because I'll show you how to assemble that. And then on the next video, I'll show how I made each of these 6 pieces. And most of them are pretty self-explanatory, but I really want anybody who wants to be able to make this, to make it. And in one spot, I made a mistake with the journal, and that's another beauty of this system. I made a mistake, and I'll show you what that is and how I rectified it. In the back, there's just a couple of vocabulary cards along those themes, and then a little glassine coffee dyed bag, a thinner one, smaller one, not a bag, an envelope with, I put a Velcro closure on it, sorry. Put a little Velcro closure in case of little treasures that the person wanted to save. Maybe a dried leaf or something. And then this, it's a couple layers of this packing board, cardboard, chipboard, whatever you want to call it. A couple layers, and then I wrapped it with that digital, and I covered it with collage medium, which is very much like a Mod Podge, only it's got a more adhesive quality, and in the summer when it's hot and it dries, it's not sticky. So there's a writing board. So if you're writing on a page that's in there permanently, I think this one's one that's in there permanently, all you have to do is tuck the writing board behind it and you can still write. And that was the purpose for the writing board. And then I sewed the closure into the back cover prior to putting the cover plate on. And let's see, one place in here when I was sewing, the first step I did after I finished everything was I sewed down these sari ribbons, or sari silk borders, ruffles, whatever you want to call it. And on one, I grabbed two, here you go, I grabbed 2 pages at once, right? And so I've got 2 pages that are sewn together. And so I'm creating that as like a secret hidey hole, and there'll be, whoever gets this will have a treasure in there somewhere. So if you make a mistake, I guess this one's really a forgiving project. All right, and I will show you. And then to close it, I just push down, use that hole in the doily, and hold it closed like that. And again, it's chubby, it's a 2-inch spine, but it's not gator mouthed. I mean, it closes nicely. It's full of journaling spots and things, but you can see there's plenty more room if you were going to add something else. There's writing on every page, and I put those clips with the ribbon at the bottom. Well, one, because it was pretty, and two, it balanced the weight of the top and the bottom. So there's the journal. To construct the pages, I used coffee dyed glassine envelopes, and I purchased these envelopes from Amazon, and they're 4 1/4 by 2 1/2, and they come just like this, right? I know that lots of Etsy shops carry them so that you don't have to purchase 100 or so like I do. So they come just like this. And I originally thought I would use these envelopes because I had these, I'd been gifted these, and they're really pretty. But I wanted something smaller because of the scale of the mini florals, and I wanted something coffee dyed with a little bit more grunge. But if this is what you have and this is the look you like, if you don't want as much grunge, any of the smaller envelopes will work great. Apparently I had 2 different sizes of these. Yeah, it looks like I've got 2. Oh, I know, they're not 2 different sizes. It's one size, but I had cut off the top and I wanted to show you. So I had glued them together, and I'll show you how that's done in this video. And then I cut off the top to be able to tuck things into the top. And I'll show you why that's probably not the best idea for this style, it's this size. Purchased these, and then I gave them all a coffee bath, just dunked them in the coffee. And then when I'm done with that, in order to get them to be flat and not wrinkly, I put them between 2 pieces of plywood, and then I clamp the plywood down after they're dry, of course. So coffee bath, dry completely, put them in a stack, clamp them between 2 pieces of plywood or 2 heavy books or whatever you want, and clamp them down. And that's what they come out like. And my reasoning was, 1, I wanted the grunge, and 2, they're sturdier. I mean, they're strong anyway, but when they absorb the coffee, they get a little bit stronger, which is really nice. And it's already got a little tiny bit of crinkle. Even though these are flat, it's got the variation of the coffee color or tea or whatever you like to dye with. And it kind of hides any mistakes. So if you don't line things up perfectly, or if you've got a glue spill or whatever, if you tear it like I did on one, you can put just a little bit of that faux cello tape and it looks like it belongs. So the functionality of this is why I went with it. And again, if this is what you've got, use it. It works great. Same thing here. I had a box of really inexpensive, cheap envelopes, and you can use these too. And I'll show you, I mean, it's super quick. Note, learn from my mistakes or my errors. I had originally started making these and I cut off the tops because I wanted to put journaling tags on the top of each one. Well, when you do that, it's part of the closure. And by doing it that way, I had to add more glue, and I had to glue the spine together here. So you see here how the envelopes give you a natural give, a natural wideness. Well, when I glued them together, I lost that. So I'll probably use this for something, though I'm not 100% sure what, but you don't get that ability if you cut out envelopes off at the top after you've assembled the base. You lose the ability to have that expansion. So be really careful about what you want. So I'll probably disassemble these and use a couple at a time in something. So they won't go to waste, but they didn't function as I wanted them to. I didn't think it through. So learn from my mistakes. You know, if this is what you want, just recognize that you're not going to have the expandability on the spine. And I'll show it to you here if you're using regular envelopes. So you get, in this case, 15 envelopes for 30 days, unless you're doing more or wanting to make it larger. 15 envelopes, and then fold all of the envelope flaps back. First step, just fold them all back. Then, once they've all been folded back, where the opening is, flip it forward, and then glue. My high, strong recommendation is do not glue all the way up to the crease. Half an inch, quarter inch, whatever you want, but do not glue all the way up to the crease, because that is what's going to allow your expandability. So then just glue this part. And you don't need a ton of glue by any means. You glue that part. And so this is the front of the envelope. You folded it backwards. You tuck it into the next envelope. And you open it again. See how it's folded over back? That's why I do all that step at once. Folded back. Or folded. The back of the flap is folded to the front of the envelope. And you have a stack of those. Then you take the envelope piece that you've just glued, you've glued on the top of the envelope that would be showing if you were to seal the envelope. Maybe that's a good way to put it. And then you line it up. You put the crease, you match the crease. If you tuck under it more, it doesn't flow well. If you pull it out too much, it gets floppy. So what you want to do is line the creases up, and then you push down. Now, this envelope is obviously very different than this envelope. You see how the depth of the cut in this envelope is versus the depth of the cut in the glassine envelope? This is much closer to the spine, which is why when I'm doing the glassine envelopes, I put glue on most of it. On this one, now I would have this big old sticky piece, and it would stick to something else. So be mindful of that when you are gluing. I like wet glue, but with this project, because of the weight of the paper, the wet glue can create bubbles that you may or may not want. So in this particular case, I've got this. I would just let the glue dry, and then I would use what I call it's a stamping tool. Anti-static powder. You can also use baking soda, I believe, or cornstarch. Cornstarch works great, but it's anti-static powder. And if anything is sticky, like I'll use this on the back of stickers or something that I don't want to stick. You just put a little bit of this. You can see maybe there, the granules. Put a little bit of this on it, and it keeps it from sticking together. In this case, it doesn't take long. I would wait for it to dry before I would fold it closed. And then you continue on the same exact vein. You can even dry fit if you want it to. You work with, I've folded the top flap towards the front of the page, and then you put the glue on the showing piece of the top flap, and you tuck it in. And you can do that for as many pages as you want to make your journal. And again, the only even remotely tedious part is you want to make sure that these corners line up nicely, because that's what gives you your envelope. Then it's glued down and it's dry, and that is what creates your flexible spine. And I'll show you it with a couple here. So let's see. All right. Again, and here you have a much lighter opening. Fold it back on its crease, And I'll do 3, and then I'll show you how I do the last piece. It's personal preference, and it doesn't have to be. Okay, so 1, 2, 3. Let's do 3, and I check to make sure that the opening is going the way I want it. Okay, so I've got all my so, and then when I do it, I lay them like this, lay them all stacked this way so that I know where I'm going to put the next piece. Here is my opening. Here is my next envelope. I flip the envelope over. On the front section, I'll put the adhesive. And then I tuck it. Oh, there's glue on there, so just be warned. And then I tuck it in right, well, if I can open it, let's see, tuck it in right here. Okay, and line it up, see, so it folds nice, and then I press down. And I know I'm not completely in frame, but I wanted to not get that glue on there. Okay, here you go, see, and you lay it down. And then you flip this one over, and you've got that opening, and you're going to do the same thing. I've got my stack, here's my opening. I'm going to flip it so that the front side of the envelope is showing. I put glue along that band, and then I tuck that band or the flap into the previous envelope, and align them up and push down. Now, to make sure that these didn't stick together while I was waiting for the glue to dry, and a lot of times you can see here how it's not perfectly lined up. That's one of the times and places that the wiggle room really comes in handy, because you can line them up and move them so that they're a perfect match. And then I will just put some of this anti-static over it to make sure that when I'm putting the subsequent page in, they don't stick together. And you do that all the way in as many envelopes as you want. In this case, I did 15. And you see how you've got some of that wiggle room, that expansion room? All right, when you're the last step that I do when I'm ready to have my last page, I don't have a flap. Like here is what I glued down onto my cover page, right? I glued this flap onto my cover page, and that's how I glued it into my journal itself. What I did was I took a piece of, actually I had an envelope that was torn, but same idea. I took a piece of this baking paper or tracing paper, and I copied and cut the exact same thing. Well, heck, you can do that, or you can just grab an envelope. Here, let's take, since all of these are, I'll tear it off here so I'm not wasting one. All right, I've got this shape, and I just cut out this exact same envelope flap shape. Okay, and use this as its template. This one's glued together because of what I did with the other piece. But right here, there you go. See, I've got essentially the envelope shape, and I tuck it in exactly like I did all the others. But in this case, rather than being another envelope, it is just in here. I'll glue that so you can see. Glued the flap again, just like I have on all the previous ones. But instead of being a full envelope, it is a flap. And I'll tuck it into that open spot. Line it up just like I did before. Push down. Make sure it's adhered. Put a little anti-static on there. And I now have a flap for both pieces to assemble my cover, front and back. And that is all there is to the construction. And you put as many or as few on as you want. And then you glue this down, in between your sandwich papers. This will be your cover. Let's say it's covered, of course. And then you put your sandwich paper on top of it when you're done. And that is how the spine of this envelope is constructed. In order to make that opening that I showed you, I just take this strip, take this envelope, it's in the book. Again, this is the back, this is the opening section or the spine section, and then I just trimmed a little bit off the front. Again, if you trim it off the top to make a top tuck for your tag, that's where it's held together so it flops open. And now I have the option of putting a top tuck. Now you can see it goes all the way through because it's the envelope and that's where the opening would be. Just put a bead of glue just inside this particular pocket. So where I've done this, I'll put a bead of glue just along that section, and I still have the opportunity to expand my spine, but I've got a closed bit, so if I'm tucking something in there, it's not going to go out the other side. So when you open it, it's obviously not dried completely. It creates the closed space for a journaling card or an envelope or whatever you want. And that's the background. All right, the next video I will show how I did each of the 6 pieces, and I think that's it. The cover is just, like I said, a piece of covered chipboard. The spine, I just took that piece of lace and sandwiched it, and sandwiched the piece of lace between the back page and the cover, and glued it in place or sewed in place, right? And that's what created the closed spine of this. So if there's anything else that you want to see in addition to the 6 pieces, please just let me know. But I think that'll about cover it. Oh, I know one more thing I was going to share super quick. So as I was doing this journal, I was realizing I have so many really, really cool pieces at home. I'm lucky beyond belief. And as I was looking at the video, somebody asked about something specific in my craft room, and I was looking to see what was where. And I realized, I mean, I know it anyway, but I have a lot of things to use, a lot of really, really cool treasures that I've collected over the last few years. And it made me really think about what I want for my word next year. I like to determine this year. I loved squirrel for last year, but for next year, I want to utilize what I've got. And so I asked my friend Tracy, I'm like, okay, I like utilize because I want to utilize the things I have, but I don't love the word. I want something, I don't know, a little savvier. I don't even know if that's the right word. So she said, well, how about rediscover? And I thought, oh, that's really cool because I'm hoping that I can make it work to go to the UK over spring break and visit with my friend. And so I want discover. That's a new place for me. I've not been to Europe before. So discover, but rediscover. And instead of purchasing new treasures, which I'm sure I will, I want to really revisit what I've already got and rediscover them in maybe new ways to utilize them, new ways to repurpose things, new ways to use just all the cool stuff I already have. So rediscover, just like that, is going to be my word for 2024. So there you go. Just thought I'd share that with you. Thank you all very much for watching. I appreciate your kindness and your comments. As always, I will do my best in a timely manner to answer questions, and the new video, I'll work on those bits today, and the new video will be up probably tomorrow, showing how to make each of those 6 different pieces. Enjoy a beautiful fall wherever you are. Well, unless you're in Australia, then it's not really a beautiful fall right now. It's more like spring approaching summer. But take care and happy creating.